Eric. Yeah. So we're wondering, these are board members.
We're rich. Oh, I'm gonna be rich today. Cheers, lovely. It looks kind of low. Oh, maybe not.
Call the personnel meeting to order. 6 o'clock, I'll call the audio committee meeting to order.
What was the question? We will start out in closed session unless the employee requests to go into open session for the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
We'll go into closed session. Motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stats 19.5, 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph B, for considering dismissal, demotion, license, or discipline of any public employee or person licensed by the board or commission for the investigation of charges against such person and the taking of formal action on any such matter, provided that the public employee is giving actual notice of any evidentiary hearing which may be held prior to final action being taken, and of any meeting at which final action may be taken. The notice shall contain a statement that the person has the right to demand that the evidentiary hearing or meeting be held in open session under Wisconsin Stats 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph G, for conferring with legal counsel for a governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategic to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
You needed a motion.
A motion and a second to go into closed session.
Motion and a second. You need a motion and a second.
Can you?
Second. Now roll call.
Bob?
You did a roll call.
Mike?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion for the personnel committee to go into closed session.
So.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
By Mr. Undershoots. Mr. Ratzak.
Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Undershoots.
Yes.
We will now go into closed session. Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, para 1, para B, for considering dismissal, demotion, licensing, or discipline of any public employee over which public employee or person licensed by a board or a commission for the investigation of charges against such person and the taking of formal action on any such matter, provided that the public employee is given actual notice of any evidentiary hearing which may be held prior to final action being taken, and of any meeting at which the final action may be taken. The notice shall contain a statement that the person has the right to demand the evidentiary hearing or meeting to be held in open session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, para 1, para G, for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. We are now in closed session.
Oh, was there a second to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Second. And I'll respond.
so everybody at this point will leave until the employee can stay.
Is this where I asked to put it in open session?
I'm gonna walk through the procedure first, and then you'll have that opportunity.
Can my wife stay?
Not until you're in open session. Okay, Mr. Webster, I just want to verify, as I mentioned in our procedural summary, can you verify that you did receive written notice of the hearing that indicated, you know, what the purpose of the hearing was, and that you had the right to request that the hearing be held in open session?
Yes.
Great, we will start with the administration, and I believe, is it Deputy Webster? If you could present with respect to your involvement,
Where do you?
wherever you're comfortable. I think I'm just looking for a summary of.
Right, so from the start, how did you become involved? What did you investigate?
And do you have a copy of the report? Do you want a copy of the report?
I have a copy of the report.
Okay.
So I was requested by the sheriff to investigate a traffic offense. I was given a list of names, a basic synopsis that it involved a highway department employee, given a list of names of people who were potentially witnesses and a person who potentially may have committed an infraction. That was on July 17th. About 2 p.m. I went to the highway department and started interviewing people who might know something about this. So, I'm used to testifying in court and can't do like leading like narratives. So
All the rules of evidence are strictly, they're relaxed, so you can
just kind of pause
summarize
and
your
for a
report.
question.
Okay.
So essentially I spoke with 3 people who were passengers in a vehicle that Mr. Webster was driving on June 19th. When I met with the individuals, I refreshed their memory to that date because I was informed that on that date they had gone up on County Highway F to do some brush cutting or something. The 3 people I talked to recalled that date. They recalled driving up there that day. They described it as like a crew cab truck that they were riding in, pickup truck. That Mr. Webster had been driving the truck. There was essentially 2 separate complaints involving the trip up there. The first complaint was use of a phone, like the allegation was texting and driving. I was provided a photo that had been taken by one of the people in the vehicle that showed what appeared to be Mr. Webster behind the wheel, appeared to be driving, and then the phone in his hand. The 3 people that I talked to all kind of verified seeing the same thing. As far as criminal statutes go, there's like different statutes for texting and driving, inattentive driving, use of an electronic device while driving, and they all have kind of different burdens of proof. But based on the information that I had gotten, the photo I had gotten in the results of the interviews, I decided to write a citation for operating a motor vehicle with a visible electronic device. So that statute excludes talking on a telephone. None of the people that I interviewed stated that there's any like telephonic conversations going on. They said that it appeared that he was reading stuff and typing. The statute for texting and driving actually involves a burden of proof that the subject was actually texting. So if they were updating their Facebook account or something like that, statute for use of an electronic device, visible electronic device while driving, kind of covers that as an umbrella. Based on the interviews and the photo, I felt like there was probable cause to issue that citation. Probable cause means that the infraction most likely occurred or probably occurred, and that the subject cited probably committed was the actor that committed it. The second traffic offense or complaint involved while operating on Highway F somewhere between Weyerhaeuser and the Sawyer County line. They weren't exactly sure. Mr. Webster allegedly was talking about how bad the shoulders were on Highway F. It was described to me that there was approximately 4 to 6 inch drop from the pavement to the shoulder, an abrupt drop. While talking about that, Mr. Webster allegedly jerked the wheel to the right, went off the shoulder, and then jerked the wheel back up to the left to come back onto the pavement. I was also informed that while this occurred, they were towing a wood chipper. So based on that, I issued a second citation for reckless driving. I actually have the statute pulled up. The definition of the law states that no person may endanger the safety of another person or property by negligent operation of a motor vehicle, and the state defines negligent operation as basically means a person should have known the driving posed a substantial risk of harm to a person or property. I also felt for that citation, there's another citation that's a county ordinance violation called disorderly conduct with a motor vehicle. I think either of those citations would have fit the offense, I guess. So that statute basically means that while operating a motor vehicle, you committed an action that caused somebody else to be disturbed.
Yes.
That's essentially the paraphrase version of it.
Okay. Mr. Webster, do you have any questions of Deputy Wojcik?
I don't think so.
Do any committee members have questions of Deputy Wojcik? I apologize if I'm proving. That's a greater name. Okay.
Vicky, I got one. Sir, considering this was a ticket written by the word of others, what is the standing of that ticket versus one that you witnessed?
Something less. So, again, I use the term probable cause, which means that there was an offense that probably was committed and that the subject in question probably was the one who committed it. You know, as far as burden of proof goes, we have dash cameras, body cameras, things like that. If we get an offense on body camera, right, where a jury can watch it, that's pretty rock solid. Or body camera, dash camera, whatever. My word as a witness is pretty good in court. If I can testify that I did observe these actions take place, that's pretty good. The statements of private individuals, private citizens hold less weight in court. The fact that there was 3 of them that kind of corroborated it, probably, had it been one person, I probably wouldn't have written a citation at all. The fact that there was 3 people that corroborated it, I felt like it rose to the level of probable cause.
Thank you.
Does the fact that there was a photo, did that impact your analysis of the situation?
Yes and no. It definitely showed proof that that Mr. Webster was behind the wheel of the vehicle with a phone in his hand, but I can't prove that he was actually operating the vehicle or the vehicle was in the vehicle that occurred.
Any other committee members have questions? Deputy Wojcik? Mr. Webster, did that raise any questions on your part?
Yes, Mr. Whitecheck, if I called somebody in, like if I was in a construction zone, like when I was flagging, if I gave you a license plate number and told you the description of the vehicle, would you write a ticket for that same type of incident?
So, based on one statement, and again, I don't wanna say there's a hierarchy, but because of the position you hold, say a highway department worker, a construction worker on the second road, that would probably carry more weight. I can tell you past experiences, I've been a cop for 15 years. I hold mediocre weight on citizen statements. We get complaints frequently of erratic driving. Somebody will say, I'm following a vehicle and it's ditched a ditch, and I follow the vehicle, I find the vehicle and follow it for 5 miles and it goes down the road straight as there. So I will, if somebody makes a complaint, I will investigate it. I won't necessarily take enforcement action based solely on an individual's complaint. I don't know if that answered your question.
What kind of does? So for what I bring up is, like 2 years ago, I was flagging on Highway 8. You weren't the officer, so that's what I'm asking. So I was at work flagging, working on the road, and we had some people driving erratically through our work zone, and an officer ended up coming. Not that I called him to come home. Somebody else may have, or he just happened to be. Because it does happen quite often that an officer will check our work zone out and watch for us. There are a couple employees that have officers' numbers and say, hey, we're working in this area, come check it out. So I don't know that thing, but we had 2 vehicles that I wrote down their vehicle description. They were visibly, on their phones, whatever. And when I talked to that officer on that job, he said that if he didn't physically see it, there's nothing you could do about it.
So, and again, that's a little bit the statute of like use of the phone thing, because there's different burdens of proof. It's not illegal to make a phone call while you're driving. It's not illegal to dial a number, hit call, and talk on your phone. So I can't speak for that officer because I wasn't there. Like I said, I when I get a complaint, I investigate it, but I wouldn't necessarily write a citation based solely on a witnesses.
Yeah.
And the other, I guess the other dynamic would be the nature of the complaint. So if the statement was I saw somebody drive through with a phone in their hand, that doesn't necessarily constitute a moving violation or a traffic violation.
Do you believe I was on the phone while the reckless driving occurred citation?
I do not. That was not anything that was told to me. Nobody said that when you went off the edge of the road that you were on your phone at the same time. I couldn't 100% say you weren't, but I definitely would not believe that you were.
Any other questions? Any committee members have questions of Deputy Wojcik, or can you be excused? Okay.
I just have one for the officer. I'm not a policeman, I'm just a county board member, but, in a lot of accidents, they can tell whether somebody's texting or not. If Kurt was on the job that day, that time, that hour, whatever, if he's texting on the phone, that should be part of the phone log, shouldn't it? Just.
So are you saying, like, if you went back and looked at somebody's phone records?
Yeah.
So, again, this is getting into more of a
Right.
IT type question.
Yeah, but I mean.
But I believe
They
that a phone log will show incoming or outgoing phone calls or texts.
Right.
I don't believe it would necessarily show like internet use or whatever, but like a a forensic audit of the phone physically potentially could show that.
I do have one more question. I know when you were at my place and talking about the citations, I brought up the situation of, you have the 3 witness statements, but you never actually asked me for a statement before you handed me the tickets.
That is
You had the statements, or the tickets pre-printed out, and I was basically gonna get them no matter what I said.
That is correct.
And, so I just wanted to, be clear with that.
Any other questions of?
So is that normal for you to write the ticket without talking to the accused?
So, again, it depends on the investigation, right? So if I feel that I have risen to the level of probable cause in a citation, that, and it's something that I can sit in front of a jury and say, yes, I believe that this happened, and this is why I believe it happened. If I can rise to that level without talking to maybe the person in question or what I have done it in the past, I guess.
One more. Were any of the witnesses apprehensive or, willing to give statements?
So I'm not 100% sure I understand your question.
Were they apprehensive about talking to you and giving statements about what happened?
Yeah.
Being it was like 28 days after the incident.
One of them was, yeah. So, let me clarify that. He was openly willing to talk to me, was apprehensive to write a written statement about it.
Alright, any additional questions of Deputy Wojcik, or?
I have one. Deputy, if I understood the last statement you made regarding the ticket and regarding Mr. Webster's question, so are you saying that you felt confident in writing the tickets ahead of time that you could stand behind them in court?
So I felt confident there was probable cause to write the citation, correct? I felt, so, and again, I want you to understand, the burden of proof for conviction is beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof to write a citation or make an arrest is probable cause.
Okay.
So I felt confident that there was probable cause to write the citation.
Thank you.
Last call for questions for Deputy Wojcik. You're free to go.
Do you guys want me to step on? Or,
No, it's open session.
okay.
Next, I believe the administration wants to call Highway Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, after I found out about the investigation and all that being done, I was told to have discussion with the individuals that were involved. I sat down and talked to them in a room there, and to ask them what came about that day, what they were doing. We were going to cut brush on County F, which is regular routine maintenance for us after storms and stuff. There's one up there, one individual stated to me, cause I did each individual, one of the individuals stated to me that he was, Kurt was texting while driving, and he forced the picture onto the board and stuff. They said on the way up County F that Kurt, you mentioned that Mr. Webster said, hey, look at the shoulders low, boy, swerved the truck off the road, come back onto the road. While they were up there in that situation, they came back to cut brush, and that's when they were continuing to start cutting brush. As far as more into the county depth of it, I don't know if it's any more about the citations, but they're, all of our employees have been through chainsaw safety classes and all that they've been having classes, during that time, the individuals also told me while Mr. Webster was running that chainsaw that he was dropping the sapling trees, which they weren't very big, but they were still coming out, struck one individual twice in the arm, on the machine and on the pickup. During that time, they claimed that he wasn't paying attention to them to see if there was any traffic coming or not, to withhold him from stopping. But again, that's what they were telling me about it. At that point in time up there, one of the individuals stated that he wanted to call back to the shop, but there's no cell phone reception up there. I didn't find out about this until later on.
When you say later on, how long?
I found out that there was a letter and photos entered into the county, not even a week later.
Mr. Webster, do you have any questions of Highway Commissioner Jones with respect to testimony he just gave?
When did you notify me about the tree incident?
When did I notify you? I found out about the written letter, about after we come to closed session, of the day. You know, after when the investigation took place, that's when I found out about the tree falling onto the pickup pad. Before then, I didn't know anything about the tree withholding onto the vehicle or anything like that.
So what you're saying is you found out 28 days later?
Well, when I found out. Cause I would've, if it would've been something more further notice than that, we would've had a talk what we normally would.
Right, which we didn't. I did not get any notice from you until I received the dismissal letter, or the administrative letter.
Okay.
You worked out on the road cutting storm damaged trees.
Correct.
And you know how it goes to cut those storm damaged trees. When you get a thumbs up for something from the person on the road watching, and isn't it that person's responsibility to stop traffic then? Once you proceed to start cut a tree, you can't just stop cutting the tree.
Correct. When the guy out on the road looks at the chainsaw operator and he is ready to cut the tree, they communicate back and forth to make sure that traffic is stopped before the guy in the chainsaw cuts the tree to drop it. Right. Make sure that traffic is stopped and safe.
Yeah, so like when you mentioned about the employee saying I wasn't watching for traffic, once I have permission to cut the tree, it's not my responsibility. And how could you watch for traffic if you're paying attention to what you're doing?
Correct. When you're cutting a tree, you're supposed to be concentrating with the chainsaw and watching the tree as you're cutting it.
And
of safety.
And reiterate a little bit about County F. County F had major storm damage.
It did.
Every tree that we've been cutting on County F has been compromised. Either it was a tree that was already hanging on the road, the top's been broke off, and then it's been split. So it's actually dangerous to be cutting those trees, and you can't always judge exactly where those trees are gonna go.
There is danger there. That's why we have the classes though also to help train us to contend with the emergency trees that we have to cut. You know, we have certain levels of chainsaw safety classes that we have taken to help with this ordeal.
Right. And I did follow those rules, and that's why the employees are supposed to be on the road and having the spotter for you that gave you permission to cut. And I never hit the truck, because otherwise there'd be damage on that truck and you'd see it.
Correct. There was no damage done to the truck, there's no damage done to the chipper, there's no damage, physical damage at all. What's that?
You stated that one of the employees was hit with tops of a sapling or something.
With the top of the trees, yeah, they collected across the arm. There was 2 employees that got hit. 2 of the employees did state the fact that they witnessed one of the others get hit by a tree. They both were top.
Was anybody injured in that?
Nobody was injured. One got, across the arm and a little bit on the back of the hard helmet. All PPE was worn by everybody that day, so that can definitely be a fact that everybody was wearing their PPE.
Good question. So, if I understand the procedure right, one of the other guys gave him the green light to cut the tree down, and then he cuts the tree down. Is that part of the procedure?
The procedure of cutting trees down, usually we have the chipper when we're out there. We find the areas that are heavily damaged or whatever, because you're working in that area. They usually got 2 guys that are feeding the hog, one running a chainsaw. When a guy goes to cut a tree, he looks up at the guys up on the road, make sure all traffic is stopped, make sure that the coast is clear to cut the tree down. And when they cut the tree down, then that's when it goes, they tell the chainsaw operator to cut the tree and release it.
So one of the other guys gave him the green light to cut that one.
What's that?
One of the other guys gave him the green light to cut that tree down.
Yeah, it's the only thing like I say, I know there's 2 of them standing at the chippers, and that's what I was told, but again, I was not there to witness everything that goes on.
As the ones at the chipper got hit, or the ones on the road got the green light?
The ones at the chipper is the one that.
Any other questions by committee members of Mr. Jones? We'll come back to it, promise. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Webster.
What's the policy on if a worker is struck by a tree, like a timeline of reporting that?
Policy on turning in an incident. It must be turned into facility. I just read it the other day. It was within X amount of days and hours. I'd have to go back to the handbook again to read it.
Are you talking workers' compensation type injury, like a first
No,
report injury,
like-
or just a general incident report?
Any incident to be reported, stated in the personnel handbook that they have X amount of time to, with turn in information.
But specified in the handbook?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that policy followed?
Turned into the committee, or turned forth, I believe it was met the criteria.
Any other questions, Mr. Jones?
Under that policy, are you gonna, is that, I'm trying to figure out how to word what I wanna word here. Any incident to be turned in, I mean, you get swatted by a piece of brush, are you gonna turn that in, or are you gonna turn that in if you got injured in that incident?
Water pipe brush, usually we don't turn in. If any injuries occur, it's supposed to be any close calls or any of that is supposed to be turned in.
There was no broken skin or any blood or anything like that?
No, there wasn't.
There's supposed to be communication between the flag and the chainsaw guy before the drop.
There's supposed to be communication, there's supposed to be eye contact and.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, there's supposed to be eye contact between them at all times.
Any other questions of Highway Commissioner Jones?
So I'm, possibly facing reprimand of an employee maybe not following along with the flag man or the person that give permission to cut the tree. Or they didn't follow the policy of the other employee, and they may have stepped in the way.
In the policies, of the chainsaw safety class that we have on the road, you should be within contact, physical contact with each other and know what each other is doing at that point in time. As far as anything that happened during the investigation of that one on, I don't know how too much in the policy book about that. I've been reading on them and I'm trying to figure out again, they changed the policies in the handbooks, so.
I understand it was just updated in June of this year. Alright, any other questions of Highway Commissioner Jones before we move to the, to Mr. Webster to present his evidence?
I'd like to restate my question, Scott. So I'm facing reprimand on a potential incident with cutting trees that wasn't turned in for 28 days. And that I was dangerous.
There's multiple things with, testimony and investigation that went on, if it, the way you understand about swerving off the road and coming back on the road to chipper automobile, it's endangerment of our other employees' lives.
That's not the question I asked you.
You know, it was testified by 3 guys that told me what happened. As far as that and cutting trees, it's up to the board, you know, tonight, how things are gonna go.
Mr. Webster, now it's your opportunity to present whatever evidence you want the committee to consider with respect to the incident that we're talking about.
Where can I read this from?
You want me to bring the podium up? It's okay, you can everybody hear well enough, or? Mr. Webster, would you like me to bring the podium up and bring a microphone to you?
Sure. Yes, please.
Yeah.
That'll help the speakers on.
So this is a speaker I should project. Okay. Guess the microphone's not working, but there's better acoustics right now, so.
We turn the other speakers on.
Okay. welcome to proceed.
I want every word of this statement put into the minutes to the public. I want to be very clear that this meeting is being held at a rescheduled date that was not organized with the ability of me or my attorney to be present or to be fully brought up to speed about this case. I want this an open session. On Monday, July 24th, I was advised that a disciplinary hearing was scheduled for Wednesday, July 26th at 5:30 p.m. On July 25th, I requested a postponement of the meeting to be rescheduled to a mutually convenient time so that I could, 1, review the charges, 2, have an opportunity to retain employment counsel, and 3, see and possibly copy my personnel file. I'm going to reiterate on 2. I received employment counsel on Monday, yesterday, and tried to reschedule this meeting. This is a rush to judgment. Can I use Ducelle's name? This is a rush to judgment. Ducelle shouldn't be here. And Highway Department shouldn't be involved with the decision making. This is a personnel issue. As far as I'm aware, Highway doesn't have the authority to place people on leave either. That is also done by personnel, but wasn't done in my situation. Last week, I was provided a copy of my personnel file and was advised that the meeting had been rescheduled to this evening, Tuesday, August 1st at 6 p.m. I retained employment counsel and yesterday on Monday, July 31st. He requested a rescheduling of the meeting to a mutually convenient time. My understanding is that Personnel Committee Chair Ducelle has objected to that request. Committee Chair Ducelle is a relative to one of the witnesses, and in this case, Bob Lincoln. Chair Ducelle has a conflict of interest and should recuse himself. I have reviewed the handbook in which that there are 5 levels of corrective discipline. Level 1 provides that the duty of the supervisor to clearly specify the nature of the concern, why has the county's expectations not been met, and the corrective action given appropriate. Level 2 calls for verbal warning. Level 3 requires a written reprimand. Level 4 requires a suspension with or without pay. And level 5 calls a personnel committee determines of whether a termination is appropriate. So I ask, why are we at level 5? On July 17th, 2023, I had an approved day off. However, I decided that I would come into work because I knew that we'd be paving, and we could always use extra help during paving. We even worked late that day. While at the time clock, I was greeted by Commissioner Jones asking if I had a minute. Commissioner Jones, Administrator Heath, and I met in Jones's office. Jones gave me a document that said I was being put on paid leave due to unsafe use of equipment and cell phone use. The document made no mention of actual offense or equipment used or how this came to be. I was at a total loss as to what this would be about. It turns out that even though Bob Lincoln said he feared for his safety, is that okay to say that? It was part of the witness statement.
It's in the records.
Okay. Nothing was brought to me for 28 days. I was allowed to drive for all that time, while he and possibly some of you believe that I endangered my passengers' lives. Or maybe you knew I never really did what is alleged against me. That night, when an officer showed up at my house to give me 2 citations, it was certainly shocking. In 23 years of holding a CDL, I have had no traffic citations. It is curious that the one citation specifically came to be only after the witnesses, can I say their names as witnesses?
The 3 that are mentioned in the reports, we can just refer to them as the...
Well, the 3 witnesses. And had an opportunity and time to get their stories right and on the same page. While the other citation has more merit because it is a picture, it certainly lacks substance to prove what I was actually doing or where I was doing it. When I brought attention to policy violations, things that need to be addressed in the past, nothing comes of those. Or after we take a MSHA refresher and I bring up about guarding and shields around the new asphalt plant, we lose shop use, except for certain individuals. Things like a foreman parking his personal pickup truck in the West Patrol shed multiple times this past winter, spring. Now 3 years later, our new asphalt plant just got into compliance. Inspected and passed by Jane from DSPS. Because I have complained about the safety issues, I was actually not allowed to work at the plant any longer. I had worked up there for approximately 6 to 7 years in the springtime and some during the summer. 1 year, I ran the plant with a foreman most of the season. How much overtime do you think I lost because I reported safety violations that needed to be taken care of or addressed? This year, we actually couldn't fire the plant until those violations were completely resolved, which made the County D project from last year an even bigger issue. I have 2 names here of board members that I had contacted. Can I say their names? Jerry Biller and Jim Meyer and I have had multiple conversations about the safety issues of the new asphalt plant approximately 2 years ago. About 1 week earlier, we had a traffic fatality within our department, and the employees involved were not put on administrative leave. The day after the fatality, we had a morning meeting talking about how we had no signs on State Highway 40, and then a foreman spoke how he doesn't like to wait for signage and it takes away from getting things done. This was heard by all the highway department employees. I had been taking signs for patching for over 6 weeks when the fatality happened. Lots of guys get bent out of shape for having to take signs. I'm not too bothered to take them, and I consider it an important step for my safety and the public safety. Mitchell, complainant, had worked with me many times recently while patching, where we have been using the signs on State Highway 8, 73, etc. Just so you know, signs are not required for patching potholes. On Monday morning, June 19th, I drove the quad cab pickup truck 23 pulling the wood chipper to the Blue Hills. In the hills on County Road F, we were looking for and at winter storm tree damage to be cut down and cleaned up. We were assigned to County F storm damage. While driving up the road, looking at the trees to be cut, I drifted off the blacktop onto the shoulder rut, and I pulled or jerked, per Bob's statement, the wheel back onto the blacktop road. I may have been going 45 miles per hour and possibly up to 50 miles per hour that Bob claims, since where they say it happened is after a very long downhill grade. I have pictures of what the shoulders look like. You should all go look at them. I was not on my phone at this time. At the moderate rate of speed, I did hit the shoulder. One statement says that I went into the ditch, but I did not go into the ditch. I did not do this on purpose. You know, you all have hit the shoulder in your driving career, especially if you're looking out the window, up at the trees, assessing where we needed to start work on the storm damage. That is what I did, and I self-corrected. I would also like to point out that just because a passenger claims that his stomach turned, it doesn't mean I intentionally was driving recklessly or endangering anyone's safety. I also did say that should be fixed, and I was referring to the loose steering wheel of the truck, which I felt with the shoulder tuck. About 15 minutes after that incident, I took a video of the steering wheel and the grip that needs to be fixed at the intersections of County Road F and Otto's Road facing north. It seems that all 3 passengers conveniently forgot about the steering wheel issue when I went on vacation on 6/20/23. In my haste to get out of work, I didn't remember to write this down as an item to be fixed. We also don't keep log sheets or daily checklists in pickup trucks. However, I did write it down at the shop on the yellow worksheets on Tuesday, June 27th, the following week. As of Monday, July 17th, this was not fixed by our department or taken out of service. Truck 23C has been in disrepair for years. Shop rakes, a t-shirt, and duct tape is the fix for the driver's seat. Around 10 a.m., after cutting some trees and getting them chipped up, we needed to pull ahead a short distance to the next batch of trees. When I pulled the truck ahead, Paul and Bob had sat down on a chipper's intake chute while chipping motor was running. When I got out of the truck, I questioned Mitchell, where did they go? He said, they rode on the chipper. As I walked to the back of the chipper, I said, we can't be doing that shit. We'll get in trouble for that. Did this make them upset with me? Did it change their mind of how will I get him back? We continued to work throughout the day without any other known incidents or issues. We even had some good conversation during lunch. It seemed all good until the last hour of the day. That's when Paul and possibly Bob had cut the tops of some small trees, not wearing their chainsaw pants. We then packed our signs up, etc., and headed back to the shop. At no time during the day, or at the end of the workday, doing our timesheets at the shop, did one person say anything about how I drove or worked. I would like to add that I was never informed of any potential issues stemming from June 19th for driving to working, either by Operations Manager Tim or Commissioner Scott Jones, and or any crew members listed above until July 17th when I was asked to come into Scott Jones's office. As for phone usage, the office and other co-employees contact each other when the conversation needs to be more private or as common issue of radios not working properly. This happens on a daily basis. A good example of this is when Mitchell was stuck this winter and radioed for a pull. A foreman replied on the radio, "Do you have reception?" Mitchell replied, "I'll check." I don't know the chainsaw incident since I was never notified of any work-related issues for 28 days, but I'm going to guess that it involves Bob. I was cutting small trees approximately 3 inches in diameter on the high bank while Bob and others were in the road. Have you ever cut down storm damaged trees? Trees that have been broken off, stressed, heavy leaning, broken tops in them, or standing or dead? If you have, you know that those trees oftentimes don't go exactly where you wanted them to go. However, in this incident with Bob, he had stepped into the ditch as the tree was coming down. He gave me a dirty look. He failed to be aware of the situation. In no way was my cutting intentionally dangerous. When you are cutting trees, you're generally get hand signal from one of the ground guys. I was using Mitchell as the majority of my ground guy for the day. When I needed Mitchell in the ditch for wedging a tree or extra help, I then watched for Paul keeping the road open. Paul, Bob, and Mitchell had very little experience cutting storm damaged trees at work. On July 12th at 3:40 p.m., I reported to Tim Meyer how I was sweeping the intersection of County Road D and County Road E and area of road to Tower Road, that Paul removed the road closed signs while I was in the road working. So that left me without any signs or flaggers. I was sweeping the road and the intersection for about from 2 to 3:15 p.m. I would venture to guess that this incident did not get documented, even though I reported it to the operations manager within an hour of it happening. No one is perfect at their job. I certainly make mistakes. However, what is being brought against me is sure stretching for a reason to terminate me. My wife and her involvement in the demanding transparency and open government has you all worked up. Everyone can appreciate that. However, nothing I have done warrants termination. You are following the policy handbook for putting me on administrative leave, nor going directly to termination. You are blatantly retaliating against me for her meddling in the county's business, and in doing so, you are allowing my reputation, character, and clean driving record to be defamed. My wife had asked for cell phone records from 2 employees during a meeting. The response was they were on their phones for personal use. I'm sure they didn't receive a write-up, and it was stated in an email that they used them on company time during work. I have tried many times to do things carefully and with concern for myself, my coworkers, and the public. When this county was completely fine operating the asphalt plant with unsafe conditions, I went around to department heads to get changes made to ensure we had safe working conditions. I worked there every day. I talked with Jerry Biller from Highway Committee and Jim Meyer, another county board member. I use signs about the asphalt plant. I use signs even when they are not required. We had a traffic death on a highway involving a county employees, and no one out there is to blame at all. No one gets paid leave until there's a thorough investigation while every I was dotted and T crossed. Sure seems like a double standard. Every guy but a few uses their phone while at work and while driving. The rest is made up based around some truths. Bob is related to Terry Dussel. Getting rid of me doesn't make any of your employees safer, but it sure sets a precedent that employees aren't safe working for the county.
Do any committee members have questions of Mr. Webster?
Yeah, he has access to the information we have, we got a picture here. Is that you on the picture?
Sir?
Is that you driving that county vehicle?
I don't know if I was driving at that moment.
Well, the speedometer says 55, 60, so, but that's, you know. Next question. You said you had a video of the loose steering wheel.
Yes, I do.
And that was, you still have it, is that turned in, or was it?
I did not turn it in. I was not contacted by anybody to give a statement, or I was never asked a question. I didn't even know there was an issue until I was put on DT.
And then,
But the steering wheel was wrote up on the maintenance list and told to the shop that there was an issue.
has that been verified? Has that been verified that steering wheel issue is on the shop list?
I have not seen it written up on the stuff, but it will be something I will check into when you guys know.
I have documentation of that.
And then, I don't have a copy of personnel file, but if I did, what would I find in it?
2 years ago, there was an issue with, I don't want to say drug test, but it was a random test. They're saying, on that, they're saying that I failed part of it because I only took part of the test. It's listed in there about the situation. I got a write-up for it, but there was some missing information, and it was during COVID. And one of the other employees that was also drug tested got called back to go to the hospital to do a different part that I didn't get. So in the list, they'll say like a miscommunication or whatever. And I openly went and took another one after, but according to the rules, that's not so there's that, and then there's I think there's a paper, like a write-up or a grievance type thing against Tim and one against Scott Edge.
That you filed?
That I filed. From what I received from my personnel file, there is no other issues in there from what I have on my phone or email.
How long have you been in the house?
It'd be just short of 10 years, like next month or this month.
And then, like I said, I don't know the stuff the highway, like you're driving the truck because you just ran it, just whoever decides to drive the truck, or you're a supervisor, I don't know.
No, I'm considered a highway 2. So we used to have like laborers and operators. Now we have highway 1, highway 2, and then we have foremen. I think I was just randomly picked to drive the truck because I had more experience cutting trees than the other guys did. But
somebody assigned you to drive the truck.
Somebody assigned me to drive the truck. It wasn't my choice.
Great, thank you.
Any other committee members have questions of Mr. Webster?
I have a question on something said, not necessarily for Kurt. This accident where a person was killed, was that investigated?
It was investigated by State Patrol.
Findings were?
The findings were that the strobe lights and everything, it was working on the grader at the point in time of the accident occurred. done now? The investigation is done. There was no fines issued at this point in time that I'm aware of on that individual or on that scene at all. I have not too much information on that.
Any other questions that committee members may have? Mr. Webster?
I have one more, Kurt. Sorry. To your knowledge, that day was the speedometer working accurately on the pickup and said question here in this picture?
I would say to my knowledge, it probably is working best. Can I add to that? When I asked for the police report and a colored copy, they said there wasn't one available.
Oh, this?
Yeah,
Would you like
Know
a
nothing
copy?
about that.
Would you like one?
that's kind of late now, but sure, I'll take it.
Any other questions? Oh, you need a question, I'm sorry.
Webster, what part of the steering wheel there is falling apart?
The whole top of it, the rubber's loose on it, and it has plate in it.
At the 12 o'clock side,
Uh,
or 3 or 9?
I would say probably from 10 till 2,
And the 2?
probably that whole area.
I was in question because I can kind of see it a little bit in the picture here.
Right, but the picture of the phone is not the incident of the shoulder issue.
I was just going based on, you said the steering wheel was falling apart, needed to be addressed, so.
The whole rubber is loose on the metal.
Thank you.
May I ask, how many miles are on that vehicle? We'll cover.
200,000 maybe?
300?
It's like a 97 truck.
Any other questions that committee members have? Do you want to make any kind of a closing statement or argument before the board or the committee deliberates?
I guess I just want to reiterate that I did not purposely jerk the wheel of the truck onto the shoulder. It was an accident of looking out at where we needed to work, because the shoulder incident was on the road we're supposed to be working on, and I would not purposely do that to try to drive off the road for any reason. Nobody has ever said that I drive recklessly, and it's not been brought up before. And like I said, the steering wheel, when I probably jerked it back when I hit the shoulder as a surprise, but that's when I noticed there's a steering wheel issue also. But
Last chance for any final questions before the committee deliberates?
Did you lose a lot of play in that steering wheel before this time? Did you drove the truck a lot of times before?
well, I probably only drove that truck 2 to 3 times this year, so I mean we got a lot of worn out equipment. So being familiar with that truck, no, I'm not currently familiar with that truck.
Do the committee members feel they're ready to move into deliberations, or anybody have any final questions or comments? Does somebody want to make a motion? Page 4 of that script has the motion to go back into closed session for the purpose of conducting deliberations. If someone can make a motion. That's fine.
On the back side.
Yeah.
Flip it over. As personnel, I would ask if anybody's got any further questions. If they're ready to.
Under the notice of 1A to deliberate, it's not listed to go into closed session.
Say that again.
Your meeting does not list to go into 1A to go back into closed session.
So with stats 19.851B indicates that the committee can go into closed session to consider the disciplinary action with respect to a public employee, and the taking of formal action on any such matter. So taking action is what the board is doing at this point, and 1G is to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who's rendering advice with respect to this matter. So.
But going back is not listed.
We started out in closed session, and
correct.
We went into open just for the evidentiary portion. We go back into closed session to deliberate. So, does somebody want to make a motion?
As personnel chair, I would entertain a motion to go back into closed session.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Undershoots. Is there a second?
Yep.
Second by Mr. Radzak. Mr. Radzak?
Yes.
Mr. Stout? Mr. Undershoots? Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
We're now back in closed session. Do I need to read it again, Becky?
Yes, please.
Pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Para 1, Para B, considering a dismissal.
I'm sorry, no, just the shortened version. Let's see, 4.
Oh, okay.
The short one.
I'm okay though.
I hereby move to adjourn into the closed session for the purpose of deliberating regarding the proposed discipline as permitted by Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Para 1, Para A, and for the purpose of conferring with the committee's legal counsel as permitted by Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Para 1, Para G.
That is same. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I make that motion.
Second. I hereby move to. Yeah. Read it first?
No.
Okay, Bob?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yep.
Yes,
I can't think of your name. Jim?
I'm okay with that.
And yes. I hereby move to adjourn into closed session for the purpose of the proposed discipline as permitted by Wisconsin Stats 19.85, Paragraph 1, Paragraph A, and for the purpose of conferring with committee's legal counsel as permitted by Wisconsin Stats, Section 19.85, Paragraph 1, Paragraph G. Now in closed session.
All right, so before.
For that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's addendum on highway.
I make a motion, is there a motion for personnel to adjourn? Yes. Motion is made, is there a second? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, personnel is adjourned.
In highway, we have a addendum for appointing Andy Mountain as interim
Operator manager.
operation manager.
where he's going, I don't know, but, as of right now, we have to fill his position, to help me out in the front office and keep things moving. And we're looking to, appoint, interim operator manager, Andy, as the coming.
Any discussion on it?
Is there anything, stipend we need to discuss or anything here, or how's that?
There should be some kind of statement that is in it, you know, picking up a lot of stuff, finance and still doing all the other stuff too that he's doing. He's gotta run all the time cards, he's gotta do everything that Tim is doing right now.
What's the difference in pay scale we have now and what's in it? Is the 24?
And he's around 24 or something now, right now, yeah.
We have time.
With his on-call stuff and everything, I figured it out today, he's roughly around that 28, 29, almost $30 an hour right now, I'm just being a regular worker. I'm just holding on to the phone and everything.
Do we have time till next month? Put it on the agenda to figure this out more. This month. This month. Yeah, that's what I was just
And you need that back on.
And we'll post date it to this date after we figure out the number, what we wanna agree. Without the numbers in front
That's
of us.
fine if we don't need to do it now, I mean, then we can put some thought into it.
And Jamie and I calculated Jim's stipend, we used a calculation, so I would suggest that we do it the same way for whoever takes. whoever perhaps.
Is he gonna be okay with that, if we tell him that we're working on it, we're gonna backdate it when he position?
Yeah.
When are we gonna make the position effective? Wow.
You make a motion to make it effective tomorrow? Any more discussion on it?
I'll do it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Get it, we get your numbers together with Ashley and Jamie and.
Yep.
And then, can you email us, we wanna work on the job description for that position.
Yeah, if you look into it, I mean, if you go to the prevailing wage thing that you guys studied that you had done, it just listed as operator manager, it ain't listed as the shop foreman and, all the other stuff. So basically, his salary is only based on one person's job.
But weren't we going to,
You're gonna eliminate the
Tim
stuff off
had
of that.
quite a lengthy job description.
Yeah, he had a big,
Yeah.
he had a big
So,
stack work
we
on
need to
him.
go through that and,
Do that, and we were looking at making the shop one.
right, and,
Yeah, the shop
maybe up
foreman
some
and
of the,
finance.
maybe
We'll
up some
put
of
it
the
on
jobs there.
this month's agenda, and we'll try to get some research on it, so we can read through it before the meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of think of it before a couple of weeks, and then the meeting, what we wanna do with it. It's gonna take a couple months to get it figured out, and then get a sense of personnel
Yep, and the board.
Yeah.
and the board.
Yeah,
We'll
sure,
start
it was
with-
time because the meeting's on the 21st, so that'll give you time to get your job.
We'll start work, yeah, we can talk a lot more at the next meeting, about what we wanna do when we get it.
Right.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make motion.
You need to carry your motion up.
We already
Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
we did that.
Somebody did
Yeah,
that.
We did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, twice, that covers.
Motion to adjourn, John?
Second.
Jim second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sketch that kind of good.
We put it on the kids. 2 days. Team Chesky. 2 days. Ordered my skid loader on feet, I ordered all the 5x6 units.
Oh, absolutely. Is yours done too, Rob?
Yeah.
I'll grab yours and give it to Jamie.
Loaded all-
Oh,
loaded my
do you
skid
wanna
loader.
finish writing it in?
Then I loaded all the
No, okay,
5x6s.
alright.
So when I dumped it, I had to load all the 5x6 in my hand.
Back.
Okay. That was 45 minutes to carry a 5x6. No, actually, there was
Okay,
a
you
tall,
paper to take home.
we laid them on their back and hauled them so we didn't have to.
I was wondering where you went.